for a whole 20 years, and now they're running together under bullets and saving the world. Want to know how that happened? We'll tell you right now. But first, let's briefly go back to 1996. We're in the boys' locker room of a high school. Some overweight kid is standing in the shower, goofing off to music. His peers watch the whole spectacle, snickering. Meanwhile, in the school gym, the Graduate of the Year awards are being held. The local idol, Calvin Joyner, better known by the nickname Golden Jet, is called up to receive the award. Taking the field, the guy starts giving a motivational speech, but his TED Talk is interrupted by a strange incident. The chubby kid from the shower is thrown onto the field completely naked. The hall erupts in laughter. Calvin feels ashamed for the poor guy. He gives him his bomber jacket and helps him cover up. Present day, Calvin is no longer a star in the eyes of others. He works in an office, watches enviously as his colleagues get promoted, and brushes off dumb jokes from his open-plan desk neighbor. He married his high school sweetheart, Maggie. During dinner with his wife, Calvin says he doesn't want to go to the upcoming high school reunion. Maggie is angry. She prepared for a long time and picked out a beautiful dress. So her husband confesses that he isn't ready for questions about his job. Everyone predicted he'd at least become a governor, but he ended up a simple accountant. The next day, Calvin scrolls through his social media newsfeed. Suddenly, he notices a friend request from someone named Bob Stone. The guy doesn't understand who that is, but accepts the request. Bob immediately suggests meeting up for a beer. Calvin asks where they know each other from, and when he realizes it's the outcast from high school, he's left speechless. But Calvin agrees right away. Calvin simply can't believe the hunk in front of him is the same Robbie who was bullied by the whole school. The guys sit down, have a beer, chat, and have fun. After a while, Bob goes to the bar for another round, and some random dude tries to take his stool.
Lose your seat.
Dude, you don't have to be a dick about it.
Calvin
It's
tries
not
to
sitting in
politely
a chair.
explain the seat is taken, but the guy picks a fight. Bob returns and quickly resolves the situation. Calvin is shocked by what he just witnessed. Bob suggests they go for a ride on his motorcycle, and they end up at their old school. While Calvin indulges in pleasant memories, Bob seems more sad. He confides in his new friend and says that since that infamous night, he's never even undressed in front of another person. But suddenly their attention shifts to a display case dedicated to the class of '96. It looks like an altar to Calvin's achievements, a bunch of trophies, photos, and awards. But none of it makes the guy happy. In a distressed state, he returns home and says goodbye to Bob. However, Bob isn't in a hurry to let his new friend go. Bob explains that he recently had some confusion with his payroll account and could use Calvin's professional help. He invites himself over to Calvin's house to sort out the accounts. They never manage to do it because Bob spills beer on Calvin's laptop. He asks if he can spend the night and ends up sleeping on the couch. In the morning, Calvin goes down to the kitchen and hears a knock at the door. The woman on the doorstep introduces herself as a CIA agent and asks if he knows the person in the photo. Calvin immediately gives Bob up, but the big guy is already long gone. From Agent Harris, Calvin learns Bob is wanted for murder and treason. Calvin starts to get the feeling something's fishy and tries to distance himself from his friendship with Bob. However, the fugitive listed Calvin as his sole emergency contact. So Agent Harris informs Calvin that from now on, he'll be the bait, and she accompanies him to his office. Once in his office, Calvin immediately hears a phone. Inside, Bob is calling him. The guy says he's in big trouble and asks to meet urgently on the office stairs. The CIA team rushes to the spot, but Bob is trickier. Calvin demands an explanation for what's happening, but Bob says nothing. He hands his buddy a gun and for some reason sets fire to a tie hanging from the ceiling. Then Calvin runs out of the office and yells. A fierce shootout ensues, during which Bob takes out almost all of his pursuers. Bob and Calvin almost escape the clutches of the authorities, but a CIA team blocks their path at the elevators.
Ow! Sorry, Jet.
Bob stalls with polite conversation, then says, "My time is up." Complete chaos erupts in the office, and Bob uses the moment to escape. The brute shoots out a panoramic window, jumps down with Calvin, and lands right on an inflatable gorilla. In the car, Bob finally explains to his friend what's going on. According to him, 3 weeks ago, A criminal nicknamed the Black Badger stole the keys to an American spy program and is now planning to sell them to the highest bidder at an auction. But Calvin doesn't even want to listen. He asks to pull over and says he wants out of this because Bob is a criminal. The big guy tells the real story. Bob and his partner, Phil, almost reached the Black Badger's lair, but right before the target, his buddy got stuck in an elevator with a bomb and died. They never caught the criminal, and Phil's death was pinned on him. Calvin sympathizes with his friend, but still begs to be let go home. Then Bob delivers the bad news. Agent Harris has surely already surrounded Calvin's house, and he won't get out of this easily now. But their conversation is interrupted by an unexpected visitor. While Bob deals with the uninvited guest, Calvin steals his motorcycle. He calls his wife and asks her not to go home, but to meet at their new therapist's office. But on the way, Agent Harris stops him again. She convinces Calvin that Bob is suffering from a progressing mental disorder and that he is, in fact, the Black Badger himself. Calvin starts to believe the woman and accepts a panic button from her, which he's supposed to press when he meets Bob.
Hey, I'm sorry I'm late. Couldn't find parking.
No, it's okay. We got stuff. Calvin, this is Dr. Dan.
Hello, Calvin. Hey.
Oh, shit!
Running late, Calvin arrives at the family therapy session. To avoid putting Maggie at risk, Calvin calms down and doesn't let on that he knows Bob. They put on some kind of circus with associations and role-playing games, but Calvin can't take it and throws a tantrum. His wife gets angry and leaves. Calvin almost presses the panic button, but Bob calms him down. He assures him he doesn't have any encryption keys and that they'll need Calvin's help to find them. Strangely enough, the guy believes him and takes Bob to see an acquaintance, a specialist in international transactions. The acquaintance turns out to be Trevor, the guy who humiliated Bob in front of the whole school 20 years ago. The man quickly gives them a transaction number and at first acts very polite. He even apologizes for his past behavior. But it soon becomes clear it's just another prank, and his character hasn't changed one bit. Calvin is sure Bob will now teach the old bully a lesson, but Bob seems to freeze. He just silently leaves the office. Calvin follows him out and gets a call from Harris. She demands his location and orders him to detain Bob until a patrol arrives. On the street, Bob tells Calvin he was the only one who never picked on him, and that's why he's his only friend he can trust. At this moment, Calvin can't hold back and confesses he just turned Bob into the CIA. Harris interrogates Bob, but the guy doesn't break. Then she orders torture tools to be brought. Meanwhile, Calvin comes up with a plan to distract the guards. Calvin gets the keys and sneaks into the interrogation room. The partners handcuff Harris to the table and make their escape. Bob asks if Calvin still has the transaction number. It turns out it's actually the geolocation of the deal. The friends enter the coordinates into a burner phone and learn the meeting is in Boston. The partners head to a private airfield in search of an aircraft. While Calvin distracts a local security guard, Bob prepares a jet for takeoff. The friends finally reach the deal location. Calvin is wary that it's out in the open. He notices an entrance to an underground parking garage nearby and says the meeting is surely happening underground. Bob praises his quick thinking and suggests they split up. In the garage, Bob sees a group of men led by the buyer. Meanwhile, Calvin spots Harris at the garage entrance and decides she is the Black Badger. He tries to call Bob, but he doesn't answer. Calvin runs downstairs as fast as he can to warn his friend. After shooting his partner, Bob pulls a flash drive from his pocket. Suddenly, Phil steps out from behind a pillar. The fake dead man declares he is the Black Badger and that the access keys are with him too. The buyer's patience runs out. He demands both men hand over the flash drives. The former partners throw the drives on the floor just as a CIA team bursts into the garage. A brutal brawl begins. Calvin, who has regained his senses, picks up the flash drives from the floor and runs. The buyer almost catches up with him in a car, but Bob saves his friend just in time. Calvin doesn't want to hear anything. He runs to a nearby bridge. His solitude lasts only a couple of seconds. Soon Bob appears on his left and Phil on his right. Each of them begs Calvin to believe them. A shootout breaks out between Bob and Phil. Phil loses his weapon and Calvin picks it up. Whether by accident or out of resentment, Calvin shoots Bob, and Phil orders Calvin to hand over the keys. Calvin tries to shoot him, but the pistol is out of ammo. Finally, the truth comes out. Phil says Bob could never have been the Black Badger because he's a sentimental weakling. But Phil, he's a smart guy. He faked his own death and fooled everyone. Finding himself one step from death, Calvin decides to pull his signature trick. It's enough to distract Phil. Bob uses the opening and throws him off the bridge. The buddies ask each other for forgiveness, hand the keys over to Harris, and head to the high school reunion. The guys arrive at the party by helicopter. Calvin introduces Maggie to Bob and asks her for forgiveness for not appreciating the simple happiness of being with his loved one. The trio enters the gym, where the king and queen of the prom are about to be announced any minute. Bob panics and almost runs from the party, but Calvin stops him. He hacked the voting system and rigged it so his friend would win the contest. Bob walks out from the crowd to general applause. On the way, he runs into Trevor, who starts mocking him again. But this time, the big guy isn't afraid. He knocks him out with a punch and walks up on stage. Bob says that 20 years ago, he stood here completely defenseless, and everyone laughed at him. But now everything is different. He has a best friend who taught Bob not to be afraid to be himself. To the shock of everyone present, the guy tears off his clothes and stands before everyone completely naked. Several months pass. Bob waits for Calvin near his house while he says goodbye to his pregnant wife. He came to give his friend a memento from the past and support him before his first day working for the CIA. It's his jacket.
Open your eyes.
Is that my jacket?
Yes.
Bob, is that my jacket?
Yes.
No, wait a minute. Yes. Oh my God.
And do you have any friendship stories that started many years after a separation? Share them in the comments. Don't forget to like this recap and subscribe to the channel to discover more awesome movies without wasting precious time. See you all later, and until next time.